the Parliament today. We're talking about the arrest on Friday. And I'm sure y'all will want to hear what is going on. Parliament today and arrest on Friday. Now, let me start by saying this. And the students who have been in this class, I'm sure, and yeah, I want y'all to indicate, we have explained to you the process once the proclamation is made for the convening of the 13th Parliament. We told you that what happens is that they're going to meet today at 2 o'clock. That is what the thing says. Now, at that first session, they're gonna elect a speaker of the National Assembly. I understand that the speaker is gonna be Nadir again. That is what they know. Nadir, the same man who banned the word corruption in Parliament and so on. Where he going back? That is what it said. That he going back. So once the speaker is elected, and you know what happens there again? It's an election of all the members. The PPP has what, 36 seats. So whoever they want to be speaker will be the speaker. Because you got to be nominated. I mean, they got a process of seconding, and then they're going to vote, and whoever they want to be speaker will be the speaker. Let me understand that clearly. Then there is to be a deputy speaker. We understand the convention was that the deputy speaker came from the party, the largest part, the party that controls the largest block of opposition seats. That didn't happen in the last parliament. Last parliament, they had what they call the Jaina party, and Schumann. All of them was just front, because Schumann then represented some other party. Asha Kissoon represented some other party. And what happened? Schumann went and he served his term, and then he handed over to Asha Kissoon. And when her turn came for her move, she decided she ain't moving for the third person to get a bite of the thing, so to speak. She never moved, right? She never moved. So we don't know who is going to be the deputy speaker. We don't know who's going to be the deputy speaker. They also will swearing the members of parliament. Let me understand it clearly. The members of parliament. We explained to you, according to Article 184 of the Constitution, I think it is, that this thing where they run around with leader of the opposition, no leader of the opposition will be elected or selected or nominated today. Let me understand it. If you have to follow what the Constitution says. That not mean, so I see Wim come out and all them talking about Azzrudin Mohamed will be leader of the opposition tomorrow. No, that is not the process. The process is the speaker today, deputy speaker, and the swearing of the members of parliament. Now, what is then said, I think is 184. I don't quote me on the particular article in the Constitution. Then the speaker will have to summon a meeting of all the opposition members. Sometime after today, he has to summon a meeting of all the opposition members, and is that at that meeting, the opposition members will elect the leader of the opposition. I mean, and when you hear the talking about all these things and so on, I said, you know that they're not students. Because if they were students of speaking out, this was explained to them time and time again. Well, if they were students, it's because they had hard. They can't understand certain basic things. Because we have done our best to break it down. All right, so that is what God takes. So today at 2 o'clock. Now what we have this story with the arrest and the extradition proceedings. I'm going to go through, we're going to spend the rest of the morning, I think, dealing with that. We have a lot to go through with that. You have the arrest, and then you have the extradition proceedings. Now, what happened? What happened? On Friday, well, let me try to get some logic to this thing. We know that the Mohammeds, along with others, the business and May Thomas, was sanctioned by the U.S. sometime last year. We know that. That is part of the record. They were sanctioned. Now, we learned that sometime last month, early last month, the grand jury in a Florida court issued an indictment against the two Mohammeds, Nazar Shel Mohammed and his son Azzrudin, who was in the leader, who is the leader of the Win party, right? Now, we explained to you that once they are indicted, the next the next thing is for a request to be made for them to be extradited to the U.S. to face the charge. Because the indictment is like the charge. They charge them in the U.S., alleging a whole set of stuff, right? They charge them, alleging a whole set of stuff. So after that, the next stage of the proceedings is for them, the U.S., to make a request to Guyana for them to be extradited to the U.S. to face these charges, right? Let me walk you through. I expressed my surprise that I think that the indictment was on the 6th of October, and for weeks, you hear nothing. Weeks. Because I was of the view, perhaps still holds the view, that they're going to also forget Azzrudin out of the way. There's no question that part of all of this is because the PPP want Azzrudin Mohamed to be a member of parliament, even though there's the will of the people. And the PPP definitely would not want Azzrudin Mohamed to be the leader of the opposition. Let me understand it clearly. So I said, in my view, that even the delay in the convening of parliament was over that. Let me understand, because today, the 3rd day of November 2025, was the last day, according to the Constitution, for them to convene parliament. They wait until the last day. And I'm saying that they were hoping that between the indictment and now, Azzrudin Mohamed would have been off the scene. So what happened? We learned that on Friday, let me read what News Source wrote. They're going to bring in CC to get a piece, and then they're going to move on. We learned on Friday that we learned it after the fact. I told you all that I had court Friday morning, virtual. I attended virtually Friday morning. It was set for 9 o'clock. And I was there, 9 o'clock, waiting, nothing. My attorneys were there as well, waiting, nothing. And then about 9:15 or so, 9:20, we were advised that court will now start at 10:15 instead of 10:15. We said, all right, come out, and we went back. We were then told that there was some meeting, and as a result of the meeting, the magistrate had to postpone the commencement of court. I learned later that they brought down the magistrate from Diamond Grove Police Station, Judy Latchman, to Georgetown Code 7. And I think they got you some process to swear in to listen, to air, or to preside over this extradition proceedings. Friday morning. Here what happened. Current to Gordon Mosley, News Source, reporting, prosecution sought to link Mohamed to criminal enterprises in Venezuela, U.S., and Middle East during bail hearing. Attorneys reject claim. Here what it says. When the extradition request hearing for Nazar and Azzrudin Mohamed got underway today, that is on Friday, the prosecuting attorneys accused the father and son of being part of an international criminal enterprise with links to Venezuela, the United States, and the Middle East. The government of the United States of America has submitted an application to the Guyanese government to have the father and son extradited to U.S., where they are facing a total of 11 charges relating to wire fraud, wire and mail fraud, and money laundering. In court today, Special Prosecutor Terrence Williams told Senior Magistrate Judy Latchman that the Mohammeds were alleged, quote, criminals with ties to high offices in Venezuela and connection to the U.S. and Middle East. Quote, the gentlemen before you have been engaged in international criminal enterprise, including tentacles in Venezuela, in high offices in Venezuela, tentacles reaching across the United States of America into the Middle East, end of quote. Attorney at law Williams told the court. He said information suggests that the Mohammeds have been in contact with authorities in Venezuela, and it is suspected that they have been making moves to continue an unlawful enterprise in the neighboring country. Looking closer at home, the attorney told the court that there's also concern that the Mohammeds could also disrupt peace and security of Guyana with support of Venezuelan elements and criminal elements at home, and therefore should not be granted bail. Further, he argued that they are witnesses to the crimes which are the subject of the U.S. extradition request, and there is a concern that the Mohammeds could tamper with justice. But the attorneys for the Mohammeds dubbed the prosecution's argument as baseless and without merit. The lead attorney, Sayand Dujan, told the court that the majority of the allegations placed before the court were being heard for the first time and were never the subject of a police investigation on our charges in Guyana. He said Williams approached the court with mere allegations with zero evidence. Quote, no charges have been laid with respect to the criminal enterprise referenced, and our clients have not been questioned by the police in that regard. End the quote, Dujan told the court. Alluding to the Venezuelan connection, Dujan said the only entity that has sought to link the Mohammeds to Venezuela is the government of Guyana. He singled out the Vice President Bar Jagdeo and friends of the government as being key to those claims, submitting that the case before the court is a political one intended to bar Azzrudin Mohamed from taking up his seat in the National Assembly. Dujan also rubbished the claim that the Mohammeds were flight risk. He pointed out that although the Mohammeds were indicted in the U.S. in early October, they have remained in the country. Rising to support, Senior Counsel Royce Ford also made a case for bail for the Mohammeds. He said the government has had the Mohammeds under surveillance for an extended period, and the father and son would have no trouble handing over their passport to the court and reporting to the police daily. He said they were even prepared to be monitored more by the police. On airing the arguments, the magistrate granted bail in the sum of $150,000 each, while applying two conditions. The accused are required to report to the rival police station every Friday, and they have been ordered to lodge their passports. That is the gist of what transpired in court on Friday. But we have more to talk about. But let me bring in CC, and then I'm going to come back to you. Let me bring CC in to comment on that, and we have a lot to talk about in this matter. CC, let me hear your take on all of these arguments where they make about the Mohammeds have connection to Venezuela and now and in Middle East and all of that. And as the lawyer said, not a iota of evidence produced to substantiate this case. What is your take?
Well, first thing is that they rush Magistrate Julie Latchman from our court to the Georgetown Magistrates Court to deal with it. And there were whispers that she's very supportive of the government. And there were whispers that they're going to bypass her magistrate and make her chief magistrate. But lo and behold, what she did, turned the whole table upside down. Because she sent him on bail, $150,000 bail. Sent him on bail. Now that she remanded him and then put off the case for another day, and then the person would apply for bail and get bail. He was sent freely. And then we all know that in this case, anything above $200,000, you gotta get manager's check. So they go with the cash bail end of the matter. They're trying all sort of things. All sort of things. So if they had charged him and remanded him, he would have been in prison, and then they had a big legal battle whether to swear him today or whether to swear him subsequently. But the whole thing, is orchestrated to deal with Mohammed, deal with the Mohammeds, and things going to happen. I showed you in the course of the day. We will see what will transpire.
All right, let me continue. Right? As we said, Azzrudin and Mohamed and his father were arrested on Friday. Now, I am not going to get involved at this stage in the mode of arrest. Some people saying that they go arrest for embarrassing and cuff and dash in the back of a vehicle and so on. And I'm honored to remind them that on October the 15th, 2021, when I report to the court to attend court, I got summons by Soku Ramana from Soku to attend court. And when I turned up to attend court 3 in compliance with the summons, Ransom, Soku, Ramana, and others were there from Soku. Olamp on me, roughed me up, Olamp the back of my pants, Olamp on my hand, assaulted me, roughed me up. And they didn't come out and make nice. So I am not gonna go in now in the manner Mohammed, the dash in the back of a vehicle and coffee dash in the back of the vehicle and coffee and the father and people who are suspect, because I have seen videos and photographs. Men get on balaclava, you can't see the face. Men cover the face with ski masks. I don't know that they're policemen. I don't know that they are policemen, right? And then here's somebody telling me, head of special branch, the head of special branch, Senior Superintendent Prem Narayan, the triple jumper, and then he was the man who effected the arrest. The head of special branch of the Ghana Police Force effecting an arrest on this man. This thing is political. And I am saying this, and I'm going to bring the evidence to show. I'll present the evidence here. The purpose of the arrest of Azzrudin Mohamed on Friday was to make sure that he was remanded, and therefore today, when Parliament is to convene, he would have been in custody, and he would not have been released to go and to be sworn in as a member of Parliament. And look, as a former senior police officer, we don't just make these statements just like that. I can bring you the evidence to confirm that. Again, I say to you, share the light. The arrest timed as it was on Friday, the last working day before the convening of Parliament. The intention was to have him remanded by the magistrate. They brought the magistrate down from the Diamond Magistrate Court, another ministerial district, not the Georgetown Ministerial District, another, came, and of course they might have gone through the process to give her the legal authority to deal with this matter in Georgetown, right? To deal with the matter in Georgetown. Whereas, as I've read, they got a whole set of magistrates in the Georgetown Ministerial District, but they decided that this magistrate from Diamond Magistrate Court will come to deal with this matter. Well, it looked like it backfired spectacularly. And why am I saying this? I refer to a post from Attorney at Law Sanjeev Dattagin. Now, Sanjeev Dattagin is a member of the PPP. He was a member of Parliament during the 12th Parliament, and he's listed to be a member of Parliament on the 13th Parliament, should be sworn in today, right? Sanjeev Dattagin, a lawyer, one of the legal brains of the PPP, wrote to say the Mohammeds were each granted bail at the first call of an extradition proceedings against them. This is most unusual. The fundamental principle of bail is to ensure the defendants return to court for the airing of a criminal charge against them. But there is no criminal charge in this court. It is an extradition hearing. The charge is going to be heard in the court in the United States. So bail, it's not surprising that in no previous reported case where the granting of bail by the magistrate hearing of extradition proceedings. Let me read it back. It's not surprising that in no previous reported case was there the granting of bail by the magistrate hearing an extradition proceedings. It is difficult to see our magistrate, as a creature of statute, is able to grant bail when it is not airing the charge. The claim by lawyers to the Mohamed that they intended to file some constitutional challenge does nothing to change this position. They are entitled to file constitutional challenge, but that does not entitle the magistrate to grant bail. Our Constitution preserves the right, and let me read that, yes. Our Constitution preserves the right to liberty at Article 139. But as seen below, our Constitution, Article 139I, or 1, specifically permits the loss of liberty in extradition proceedings. It's fundamental to the judicial system that there is consistency. Extradition proceedings are unique. The right of the state to put those who offered the law in trial is a sacred principle of international law, regardless of who that person is. Manuel Noriega was president of Panama when he was taken by U.S. authorities to stand trial in the USA. Desi Bouterse was president of Suriname and convicted of the Netherlands in absentia. But still, Guyana has had its fair share of extradition proceedings since I have been in practice, and none were granted bail by a magistrate due to the express language of the Constitution. I don't know how the Noriega come into the argument. That was the end of the post. I don't know how Noriega came into. We talk about extradition, and he bring in Manuel Noriega, the president of Panama. He was never extradited. Manuel Noriega was never ever extradited. What happened to Noriega? In 1989, the U.S. invaded Panama. And in 1990, months after the invasion, Noriega was found in some church or something, and he was handed over. He surrendered to the U.S. authorities. He surrendered to the U.S. authorities. So I don't know how the lawyer, Sanjeev Dattadin, PPP member, can bring in this Noriega case to argue about extradition. I don't know. Right? But I say that to say to you that given what he has written there, he has actually said clearly, unambiguously, that the magistrate should not have granted bail. He's claiming that the magistrate has no authority to grant bail in an extradition proceeding. That is what he's saying. So if you arrest him, logical, let me deal with some logic here now. If you arrest him Friday around midday and you take him to court, then the PPP expected him to be remanded. The PPP expected him to be remanded. Right? So we understand. So when I say to you that I believe that this whole thing was timed to make sure that 2 o'clock this afternoon, Azzrudin Mohamed is not at Parliament to be sworn in as a member of Parliament, not leader of the opposition as we explained, member of Parliament. The evidence is there. There is the evidence from Sanjeev Dattadin, one of the lawyers, one of the PPP's lawyers, that this man was arrested with the expectation that this magistrate that they brought from Diamond to operate in Georgetown Code 7 would not have granted him bail. No, Raul Blackman, no, he wasn't kidnapped. Somebody say, Professor, no, he wasn't kidnapped. He went to some church. I did the research this morning, you must check. They invaded in 1989. And in 1990, Noriega turned himself over. That is what is being said. Noriega turned himself over to the U.S. authorities. He been in hiding and ducking and hiding all the time. As the boys would say, he was snooping and pudooping. And then he was handed over, taken to the U.S., charged and convicted, tried and convicted. Then I understand that after that, he was then extradited from the U.S., I think, to France. That's where the extradition took place. Not from Panama to the United States. Right? So again, I say to you, Sanjeev Dattadin has made it clear as crystal, that when Azzrudin Mohamed, not the father so much, Azzrudin is the target, when he was arrested on Friday, the expectation was that he would have been remanded. And therefore, if he's remanded, then I don't know how he can. I asked the question, I tell you, I come on this program because I was into it all the time. Can a person be sworn in virtually? Y'all remember the student? because I had anticipated that he would have been locked down too. Well, it is not over. I got not over because I posted that when I looked at the crystal ball, I can see legal maneuverings taking place before 2 o'clock to make sure that Ian go. Maybe, I don't know, speculation, maybe a move to the court to say that the granting of bail was not legal or something like that. So we wait and see. Let's wait. We have what? What time is it now? Now is in Ghana. Now is 1:30. So we get at least. Let me wait and see, man. Let me wait and see. Let us wait and see this thing. So it is clear from what he said that they never expected him to be granted bail. Now let me go to this part. See, I give some batting just now. The batting sweet, the bowling soft. Following the arrest of Azzrudin Mohamed and his father, and following when they went to court and things, well, even before they got to court, the Attorney General Chambers made a media release October the 31st. Among the things they said, here's what they said, the Attorney General's Chambers, right? On the 30th of October 2025, the government of Guyana received a request from the government of the United States of America to extradite the two Mohammeds pursuant to an extradition treaty between Guyana and the United Kingdom, which extends and remains in force in Guyana under the provisions of Section 41A of the Fugitive Offenders Act, Chapter 1004, as amended by Act Number 10 of 2024. Here we say, he says that on the 3rd of October they received this extradition request. Then the next paragraph, the very next paragraph of this release said, the arrest warrant was issued after a team of lawyers led by Terrence Williams, KC, and KC, in case you know, is King's Counsel. The equivalent in Guyana is QC, SC, Senior Counsel, but it used to be QC because there was a queen. After the queen died, there was now a king. So it's a KC, King's Counsel. We don't have, well, in Guyana, you can't issue, the president can't make a King Counsel. You make Senior Counsel, right? Even though we have Guyanese who are KCs, at least one that I know. They say Terrence Williams KC, Herbert Mackenzie, and Celine Diedrich, attorneys at law to the magistrate and authority. Let me read that back. They said the arrest warrant was issued after a team of lawyers led by Terrence Williams KC, Herbert Mackenzie, and Celine Diedrich, attorneys at law, presented to the magistrate an authority to proceed from the government of Guyana, accompanied by an application for an arrest warrant as is mandated under the provisions of the Act. Now let me break that down. Nonetheless, or his office, Attorney General's release, that the government received this extradition request from the U.S. on the 30th, even though we know that they were indicted on the 6th of October. So over 3 weeks passed before they received this request. But then he goes on to say the arrest warrant was issued after a team of lawyers led by Terrence Williams KC, Herbert Mackenzie, and Celine Diedrich, attorneys at law, presented to the magistrate an authority to proceed from the government of Guyana, accompanied by an application for an arrest warrant. So basically we're saying, these three lawyers, I have done my research, are Jamaicans. Mr. Terrence Williams, King's Counsel, Mr. Herbert Mackenzie, and Mr. Celine and Miss Celine Diedrich. Well, I read about Celine Diedrich, nice complimentary things. She was a beauty queen, and I was doing research, you know. I was doing research. So and all of that. Then he said, these attorneys presented to the magistrate an authority to proceed from the government of Guyana, accompanied by an application for arrest. So what happened here? Let me break it down, man. Y'all share the life. Things getting sweet. These lawyers from Jamaica came. He's saying Friday when they went to court, the government had issued them what they call an authority to proceed. In other words, the government engaged them and issued them an authority to proceed with this matter. So they went to court along with that authority to proceed. So in other words, they presented to the magistrate their authority to proceed on behalf of the government. And at the same time, they made a request for an arrest warrant for Azzrudin Mohamed and his father, and the arrest warrant was granted by the magistrate. Now, the 30th we're talking about is significant, that they received the request on the 30th. Now, if you receive the request on the 30th, Mr. Nandalal, Attorney General Chambers, I little stupidity, tell me when and how you were able to engage the 3 attorneys from Jamaica. I tell you, I like when they write, I like when they talk, because I can dissect or dissect, right? Let me say this. They say that the government received this request from the United States on the 30th of October, right? 30th of October, Thursday. The 31st was Friday, early o'clock, early in the morning. These 3 lawyers from Jamaica presented their authority to the magistrate to proceed, and at the same time made an application for an arrest warrant. So if you only know about this thing, and you're trying to create the impression that you only know about this thing on Thursday, when you engage these people from Jamaica, having regards to the fact that you had Hurricane Melissa and all that, were there in Guyana or somewhere else where they flew in to come and to deal with this matter, yeah, continue giving these releases and talking and believe people stupid. Jack Dio said Guyana got some very stupid people. Indeed, they got a lot of stupid people. Well, fortunately, most of them are aligned and they listen to Jack Dio and Nandalal and them. That is what's going on. They listen to them. But it is clear, people say that this thing is political and they try to say that. It is absolutely clear that it's political. Clear when you look at the timelines. Sanction last year, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Indictment on the 6th of October. So they wait until the 24th. You tell me it's until the 30th of October before the U.S. presented this thing to you all. And you give the impression, creating the impression that it's only then you all know about this thing. You knew all along what was coming on. You knew all along. And therefore, you set up the wicket, as you would say. And don't disregard the fact that all the contra-Trump or the shenanigans in the judiciary with the chancellor and the thing, all might be linked. All might be linked. So what happened? You bring a magistrate especially to deal with this matter. Especially to deal with this matter. So you didn't know. You didn't know. You bring a magistrate especially to this matter. You get lawyers from Jamaica specifically to deal with this matter, you know. And then one of your lawyers, is making the argument that bail should not have been granted. So what really you telling us, man? You think we stupid? You think we all stupid? We born at night, but not last night. We born night, but we ain't born last night. So let me understand this thing clearly. It was all set. It was all set. The proclamation for the last minute, right? Because today is the last constitutionally. After Parliament was dissolved on, I think, July the 4th, today is the last day that they could comply with the Constitution to have the Parliament convene. So they wait until the last month. Give themselves enough time. The lobbyists and all them doing all sort of thing. That's that. Then you go to court and you talk about you're linking the Mohammeds with Venezuelan criminals and all them type of thing. So this is what they fed to these liars. This is what they fed to the liars from Jamaica. They fed to the liars from Jamaica and caused them to make an argument about the link of Mohammed to criminals. They call them criminals, even though they have never been convicted for any crime. And I say, if we're to use the same yardstick, when a person is accused of a crime, he's referred to as a criminal, then Jack Dio and many others are criminals because they have been accused. I'm saying, listen to me carefully because I know you're all stupid. Some of you are not referring to my students. I am saying that if you're going to use the same yardstick, the lawyer refers to they were criminals, the Mohammeds were criminals. I am not aware that the Mohammeds have been convicted for any crime. And I'm saying that if you're not convicted for crime, and the people can go into court and call you and refer to you as a criminal, they mandated were alleged criminals with ties in high offices in Venezuela and so on. I say by extension, allegation made against Jack during the Sugate thing, then he's criminal too. Let me be logical about this thing. Let me be consistent and logical. Right? I remember, I'm not saying he's a criminal. Let me understand. So I know y'all is them dunce, them people who not been far and can the Dharamlal allegation made against him. So he's a criminal too, right? Then they're linking me with Venezuela and tentacles reaching across the United States of America into the Middle East. That is what was fed to these liars. And unfortunately, I say, they do their own research. It wasn't apparent that they did their own research. So they go into the court and they look stupid. But who paid for them? Who paid? The matter's put out for the 10th of November. Are you suggesting to me that these lawyers who made an unsuccessful bid for Mohamed and them to be remanded, you want to tell me they fly out to Guyana and they're going to fly in back for the 10th? Let me know, man, at whose expense? You see, I tell you all, I like these things, you know. I love these things. I enjoyed myself. At whose expense? You brought them in. When did they come in? And in other jurisdictions, where you get the freedom of information and all them, I think all those things would have been made known. When they came in, how you engage with them, and all that. But before I go to the response by Azzrudin lawyer, let me say this, because this can take long and we can come back. The question was asked, how can these Jamaicans, the Jamaican lawyers, come and watch and actually practice in Guyana? There's a question was raised. You know, you might as do your work, you might as do the research, you all, man. I was made to understand from a reliable source that if you are representing the government, there's no need for you to be called to the bar. Let me repeat that. And in this case, the lawyers there from Jamaica are representing the Guyana government. And I was reliably informed that once that is the case, then they don't need to be admitted to the bar in Guyana to practice. Under normal circumstances, a private matter, a lawyer, you get a lawyer from anywhere, he has to be admitted to the bar in Guyana to practice. But I'm advised that because they are representing the government, there is no such requirement. That requirement is waived when you are representing the government. That is what I understand. In another jurisdiction, we'd have or two. Why is the no? Well, even CARICOM free movement in a free just sir, because this is practicing law. You can't just move. I enjoyed CARICOM free movement when I worked with Cricket West Indies, right? Because of my qualification and so on, I enjoyed that privilege of free movement. Once you show them your thing and then you fill out the necessary form and so on, you get that. But this is not about free movement. This is about being free movement, allow you to move. But in order to practice law, in order to practice medicine, you got to go in the case of the law and be admitted to practice in the particular country. In the case of medicine, you have to get a medical counsel or something to practice to allow that. I remember a case in Barbados, I was commander there. The boss, the Barbados anti-smuggling squad, had killed a man on the quarantine, say he's a smuggler, and the relatives wanted independent autopsy. And they brought in a man from Trinidad to conduct the autopsy. And then it was discovered that he did not apply to the Guyana Medical Council to be accredited to practice in Guyana, to conduct the autopsy. And I called him, and I had a conversation with him, and then he admitted that he can't practice. And then that was it. So I said, well, you can't work in Guyana as a medical professional unless you are the medical council give you the necessary permission. So let me understand it clearly, right? Let me understand clearly. So in another jurisdiction with the award, how much money they're being paid, because I don't think they're coming from where they are to come to work for chicken feed. I don't understand that they are coming to work for chicken feed, right? So let me bring in Miss CC. Well, CC is not in the studio. Something wrong. You're not out. I hope you're blackout. Somebody's telling me that Win just gone to Parliament, right? Win just gone to Parliament. Now let me tell you what the Syed Jujan, the lawyer representing Cyan, I think it is, said in the thing, among other things. He said, in reaction, is this reaction to what Datadin said? He said, at E Datadin, been privy to our bail application yesterday, Friday afternoon, he would not have made such a crucial error of law and misadvised his political superiors and Facebook followers. Laugh out loud. Section 3(1)(b) of the Bail Act says that bail under this act is applicable to, quote, an extraditable offense under the Fugitive Offensive Act. So Dujan is saying that it is explicit in the fugitive in the Bail Act that even in a case where you're dealing with extradition, the person is entitled to bail. Then he goes on to say, the Mohammeds were Friday each granted $150,000 bail by Principal Magistrate Judy Lachman pending the hearing and determination of the U.S. extradition request that the Guyana government said it received on October the 30th. Mr. Datatin cited Article 139(1) that he said specifically permits the loss of liberty in extradition proceedings. Article 139(1) Guyana Constitution states no person shall be deprived of his or her personal liberty save as may be authorized by law for the purpose of preventing the unlawful entry of that person into Guyana or for the purpose of effecting an expulsion, extradition, or other lawful removal of that person from Guyana, or for the purpose of restricting that person while he or she is being conveyed through Guyana in the course of his or her extradition or removal as convicted prisoner for one country to alongside legalese. But hear what he says. While Mr. Datadin said there was no previously reported case in which a magistrate hearing extradition proceeding has granted bail, Mr. Dujan recalled that earlier this year, he successfully defended Junior de Silva in extradition proceedings in which the Brazilian government had sought his extradition and Magistrate Clive Norris lawfully granted bail. Those, quote, those subjected to extradition proceedings have no unqualified hindrance to receiving bail from a magistrate, such as those accused of murder and treason. End of quote, he added. Similarly, the lawyer said Vitesh Guptar successfully defeated the extradition proceedings while he was on bail. Mr. Dujan also pointed to Section 15(2) of the Fugitive Offences Act that deals with extradition proceedings, which state that, quote, for the purpose of proceedings under this section, a court of committal shall have the like jurisdiction and power as nearly as may be, including power to remand or admit to bail as a magistrate conducting a preliminary inquiry as. It is, here we say, put a lash in here now. Put a lash in here. It is regrettable that Mr. Datadin is not au fait with the laws of bail in matters of extradition, as he likely never dealt with extradition or his practice in his practice prior. Not even the prosecutor yesterday, Friday, made such an outrageous allegation that bail in extradition matters was constitutionally prohibited and that the request for extradition rendered Mohammed's non-bailable. Even the prosecutor said in the argument, Mr. Julian even said even if in the United States, the Mohammed will be entitled to bail for wire fraud, mail fraud, and money laundering altogether. Attorney General Andela said the next step is for the state to disclose to the defense lawyers the paperwork that was received from the U.S. so that they could prepare for hearing. Basically, what he's saying there, as I said before, let me recap briefly. The government, well, not the government, Datadin's position is that bail should not have been granted. So if you expect, remember he's a senior legal man with the PVP, member of parliament to be sworn in today. He was a member of parliament in the last parliament. So if he is saying that bail should not be granted, then when Azzrudin Mohamed was arrested and his father on Friday, the expectation was that they would not have been granted bail, they would have remanded, they would have been remanded. And if he's remanded, then I don't know how he can go to court or go to parliament to be sworn in, right? Because that was the intention all along. It is clear from the evidence that is coming. That was the intention for him to be for them to be remanded, and he can't go to parliament today, right? So I think CC is back in now. I think he had some issues there just now, yeah. I think I see CC back in the studio. Yeah. Yes, CC, I show you heard me there. If you do any comments you wish to make at this stage.
I heard part of you there. But you know, they're fiddling with the law and they're fiddling with the constitution. And I can remember dealing with bail years ago, And there's something that guided me along the line. Points to be considered before granting bail. One, the gravity and nature of the charge. Two, the weight of evidence. Three, status of the accused. Four, possibility of absconding. Five, will the granting of bail defeat the end of justice? Six, the Constitution of Guyana, Article 139.4 talks about bail. Seven, the Bail Act, Section 7 of the Bail Act, 71411. And then you, the person who the application is being made to, has got to be guided by your conscience. Guided by your conscience. They bring the magistrate, a highly decorated woman. She's a diamond magistrate, Clothed in diamond. She come with from diamond. She's a diamond magistrate. But things have backfire on them. And they need to look at points to be considered before granting bail. And I go over, you look at the Constitution of Guyana, what the bail acts, the possibility of the person absconding, the status of the accused, the weight of evidence, the gravity and nature of the charge. And you ask, will the granting of bail defeat the ends of justice? And you need to be guided by your own conscience. That's where you need to be guided by.
All right, good. Let me the some questions are being asked and so on, and the update is that the Mohamed and the Wayne Party people have arrived in Parliament. They have arrived at the place there. Let me see what can happen, because as I've said again, let me remind you, the Parliament gets on the way. The leader of the Reinvest in Guyana, Azzrudin Mohamed, made a striking entrance at the Atachong Center on Monday. Mohamed arrived in a bulletproof vehicle accompanied by his lead attorney, Syed Dujan. Notably, the vehicle is the same one previously used by President Ali in 2020. Things happening, man. More, right? Now, so things going on. We can done just now, so you can go to that. Now, but let me say this. The fact that, all right, because we had said they might make move to prevent him from being sworn in today. Because remember, today he's been sworn in as a member of Parliament, not no leader of the opposition. Let me understand this thing clearly. He'll be sworn in today as a member of Parliament, not leader of the opposition. Then the Speaker has to summon a special meeting of the opposition members for the opposition to elect a leader. Now, I have not seen anything in the Constitution which speaks to the time this has to be done. It says sometime after today. So let me watch to see what can happen then, because if, as we said, they said Nadir, thereby gonna come to be the leader of the opposition. Let me see what can happen. If you're gonna really, how long they're gonna take to summon this meeting to elect the leader of the opposition. How long are they going to take? The Speaker has to summon this meeting sometime after today. So there's a lot in it. Will he summon it before the 10th when Mohammeds are expected to return to court? When is meeting going to be summoned? Right? Somebody tell me the clerk going to do the summoning and all them type of thing. Let me see. Yeah, the first two sitting, yes, but the first sitting, Raul, is for the swearing in of the part thing. first two. When will the second one be? We don't know. That's what I'm saying. When will be, because after today, the next sitting, I understand, or not necessarily the next sitting, a special sitting, because at that sitting, only members of the opposition will be summoned. Only members of the opposition when it comes to the election of the leader of the opposition. Government ministers are not involved in that process. Only the opposition members, the 29 opposition members, are going to be involved in that process. So let's wait and let's see, right? Let's wait and see. Now, the next thing, as I wind down this party, I can't even talk about it. I'm going to tell you something about the bombing just now. The next part is that in the statement, the Attorney General, then today's Stabrook News, in case you all want to go and read it yourself, say that they are expecting during this week more requests for extradition. Hey, people, but you got to be biting. Don't look at the area. This thing want more people. Water more than corn flour. The Attorney General, Anil Nandlal, SC, MP, is saying that they are expecting more requests for extradition during this week. Now, I remember old people say that when a blind man say he gonna pelt you, he don't get the brick in the hand already. Remember that? Old people say when blind man say he gonna pelt you, he don't get the brick in the hand already. Right? They also say be careful what you wish for. And they also say when you dig an hole, dig two. When you dig hole for your mati, dig two. One for them or one for yourself. Right? Now let me say this. An extradition request, as far as I'm aware, an extradition request can only be made for persons who have been indicted or charged in the U.S. And as far as we are aware at this stage, it's only the Mohammeds have been indicted. Is the Attorney General suggesting that others have been indicted and the indictment might be under seal? Is that what you're suggesting, sir? Because you can come and try to intimidate and all that. But we ain't gonna late beer. You cannot make a request for an extradition unless the person is charged or indicted, as we say. So in the case of the Mohammeds, indicted, we know that, on seal. But they have a case in the US where they might have sealed indictments. But I would think that before the request for extradition is made, it has to be unsealed. So we got to know who these people are. Can remember in the indictment, I have a copy of the indictment somewhere. They talk about the Mohammeds and persons unknown, others known. They said they know the others. Some known and some unknown. So we can very well conclude that this additional request for extradition that the Attorney General is talking about got to be those persons, the known persons. Because you can't make a request to unknown persons, right? You can't make a request to unknown persons. So people body got to be biting. They got to be biting. Because if the Attorney General is speaking the truth, which is something strange, the truth is not associated with some people in the PVP, right? But if what the Attorney General is saying is true, then one can expect unsealed indictments shortly, or other grand jury proceedings. He said this week he was definitive, and as I said before, if blind man said he can pelt you, that's what people say. When blind man say he can pelt you, he don't get the brick in the hand already. So if Nandalal say other requests will be made for indictment, he must have seen it already. Like how he must have seen this thing about Azzrudin Mohamed, so they can retain lawyers from Jamaica, so they can bring the magistrate from Diamond to give her the authority in Georgetown to conduct. Nandalal, we big, but we ain't stupid, you know. Don't follow your boss, Jagdio, and believe all of we stupid. We are not. All of us are not stupid. All of us are not stupid. All of us went to school August Monday, right? So we can understand some of these things. And there are more things There are more things. But as I said, 2 o'clock is Parliament, and we're going to try to close off just then. We have more to talk about this thing, more to talk. And one of the questions I want to ask you, when I tell you this whole thing is political, this thing, I'm asking this question because I genuinely don't know. In the Guyana judicial system, who assigns magistrate? Who is responsible for the assigning of magistrate? So the fact that this magistrate from Diamond was assigned to the Archer Magistrate Court to conduct this extradition proceedings, who would have done that? Is it the Chancellor? Is it the Chief Justice? Who? I don't know. I really don't know, because it will show that I would think that all of those persons are aware of what is going on. All are aware, right? There are so many questions. So when people say that this thing is political, and they jump over and say, oh, not the political, it's the U.S. government. And the U.S. government, yes, they would have done the thing. You get your lobbyists in Washington brought in this thing about the link to Venezuela and all these other things. So let me know. Right? So again, I say, before I bring in CC to comment and to wrap up, I know you get a lot about him today, but we can make that up. Who assigns this magistrate? And let's see what will happen in Parliament. Again, I say to you, Azzrudin Mohamed is not going to be the leader of the opposition today. That process does not take place on the first sitting. The first sitting today, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, swearing in. Will he be swearing in? I will he be sworn in? I suspect if he's there, that he is going to be sworn in. Right? Somebody is telling me the Chief Justice is the person who assigns the magistrate. So I said the Chief Justice. I'm telling you all, this is a big, my belief. You can't stop me from having my belief. It's a big conspiracy. All the things fitting into pieces here. The only thing in this whole conspiracy here is the surprise that these people were granted bail. Big shock and surprise that they were granted bail, that they were never expected bail would have been granted. So let me see how this is going to play out. Let me bring in CC to make his comments and to give a little closing. CC?
Yeah, Paul, things winding up. And the whole thing is political. And then you, long before, that who would have been indicted. And as they said, person known and unknown. If they get the indictment on Friday, and in labor time, with breakneck speed, 3 lawyers from Jamaica find themselves in Guyana. When the hurricane was circling in Jamaica and pouring down in Jamaica, destroying Jamaica, perhaps the hurricane Melissa was so strong that it took the plane carrying them from Jamaica straight to Guyana, without any problem. The hurricane brought them, safe and sound. And so many different things, that they come up with. And the more they talk, the more they committing themselves. And it's lies and still more lies. Lies and still more lies. And rush the magistrate from Diamond to Georgetown. I know on what authority. I would like to see that document, I remember once I was the director of public prosecution when I was commander. She gave me the authority to go to High Court and represent a matter. I remember that. I had a fiat, and I went there